Peak oil is still real for oil refiners. Only a few years ago, a cry went up that the United States needed more oil refineries. The perceived shortage was so acute that George W. Bush, president at the time, even offered underused military bases as sites for building them. But not only did that never come to pass, but the reverse is now happening. The business of oil refining is mired in a deep crisis, with 5 refineries having shut down this year, including plants in Delaware, New Jersey, California, and New Mexico. Gasoline demand, which many experts had long expected to keep rising for decades, is down sharply in the continuing recession, and refiners are increasingly convinced that even or if the economy recovers, demand will not grow much in coming years because of the rise of alternative fuel supplies and the advent of tougher efficiency standards for automobiles. The recent closings signaled the end of a period from roughly 2004 to 2008 when demand soared. Refineries operated near capacity and profits swelled. For drivers, that meant gasoline prices at $3 or $4 a gallon, especially when hurricanes knocked out refining capacity on the Gulf Coast. For refiners, this gilded period turned out to have been short-lived. Plagued by boom and bust cycles of rapid expansion followed by sharp belt tightening, refining companies have often struggled to operate at a profit. That is a contrast to the production side of the oil business, long a road to riches. Oil production creates wealth, but oil refining has often destroyed it. Even so, these are unusually harsh times for oil refiners. The recent drop in gasoline demand could result in even more refineries being closed in the coming year. We have too much capacity, said Lynn D. Westphal, the chief economist at the Tesoro Corporation, a mid-sized refiner, who estimated that the industry's capacity of 18 million barrels a day must be cut 5 to 8%. We need refineries to be shut down. Refineries, especially smaller ones, have been closing for many years. The number of refineries in the United States fell to about 150 in recent years from more than 300 in 1982. At the same time, the nation's refining capacity grew by approximately 13% as companies expanded their most efficient refineries. But the shutdowns are now coming so fast that the United States is losing capacity as refiners struggle to match their output to falling demand. Some energy experts have said that gasoline consumption most likely peaked in 2007, when it reached 9.7 million barrels a day, and will not rise to that level again. So even as demand has dropped, gasoline is still relatively expensive because of high oil prices. Gasoline prices have dropped to an average of $2.58 a gallon, according to the Motors Group AAA, with many experts predicting further declines this winter. Gasoline consumption fell 3.5% last year, the steepest decline since 1965, while diesel consumption fell 6.8%, the most in 28 years. Both are set to fall again this year. Government mandates for ethanol, meanwhile, are expected to grow through 2022. Biofuel supplies, which were very small a few years ago, are negligible, are set to reach 15 billion gallons in 2012 and 36 billion gallons in 2022. As production grows, ethanol and other biofuels displace gasoline and diesel. At many gasoline pumps, ethanol is now 10% of the blend, and the ethanol industry is pushing to raise the percentage, even though older vehicles do not run well on higher percentages. The refining industry is also faced with a new political reality. Unlike the last U.S. administration, which offered support and incentives to petroleum producers, the goal of the Obama administration is to encourage alternative fuels and reduce the use of gasoline. Refiners are complaining about the climate change legislation that is making its way through Congress, fearing that it will impose higher costs on the petroleum industry and result in even more gasoline imports from lower-cost refiners overseas, thereby making the United States even more vulnerable to foreign oil or imported oil. The increase in automobile fuel efficiency standards. By 2016, the fleet average will rise to 35.5 miles per gallon from an average of approximately 25 miles per gallon for vehicles on the road today. Is expected to reduce oil consumption by a total of 1.8 billion barrels between 2012 and 2016. Automakers from General Motors to Nissan are also betting on a new generation of electric cars that will become available in the next few years, although they will need to add more infrastructure. So, that leaves refiners with difficult choices: cut costs and hope to survive the downturn, try to sell plants, or shut down unprofitable refineries. The industry is on its collective knees right now, said the president of the National Petrochemical and Refiners Association. About 700,000 barrels a day of refining capacity have been idled or shut down in North America in the last year, according to an oil expert at IHS Cambridge Energy Research Associates. The industry is expanding elsewhere around the world, especially in Asia, where gasoline demand is expected to rise in the coming decades. Thanks to multi-billion-dollar projects in China, India, and Saudi Arabia, the industry is expected to add 2 million barrels a day of refining capacity this year, even as global oil demand drops by around 1.7 million barrels a day, or approximately 2%. American refiners are bearing much of the brunt of the downturn. Last year, the American industry operated at 85.3% of capacity, the lowest level since 1988, according to the Energy Department. The utilization level is on track to sink to 75% this year, compared with highs above 90% just 5 years ago. The Valero Energy Corporation, the nation's largest refiner, has announced that it has or it will shut down its refinery in Delaware City, Delaware, which could process 210,000 barrels of oil a day. The golden age of refining, if it ever existed, didn't last very long. And again, these are more signs Peak oil is real. Whether the price of oil is high or whether the price of oil is low, it still happens either way. And these are more signs of the end times. Transition days. The transition is an ongoing, continuing process happening day by day. And there are signs of all kinds.